Hey everybody, it's Rachel here from Rachthestamper.com, and I am going to do a redo version of this card that we made the other week. I believe it was on a Facebook Live, and I was talking about how you could maybe line your sentiments up a little bit straighter if you use the Stamparatus. So I thought I would do a redo of this card today. Now we are going to do also change it up. We're going to do it in shades of blue because maybe you have somebody that might not necessarily appreciate a pink and red card quite as much. So it is very simple to do this technique if you have a Stamparatus, because what you're able to do is basically step the paper that you're going to be stamping on down, and you can go with these little increments here. You have 1/4 inches, but you can even move so much. When you have the grid paper, you could move 1/16ths, you could move 1/8ths, so you can kind of play around. Now what I'm going to do, I did not do a card ahead of time, so I am doing one fresh. I thought it would be fun if instead of doing it on white, what we'll do is we're going to do it on a piece of Seaside spray. And we'll stamp it in Seaside spray, and then we'll make one. I'm not exactly sure how the color combo is going to go, what I want to do, but I'm going to try it anyway. So we're going to do it with Pretty Peacock, and I'm going to kind of try to stick with the same thing that I wanted to do originally. So one thing that I am going to do is I'm just going to grab my magnets. Now you do want to kind of keep these separated because if they come together, they will stick. They are very hard to get apart and they can break. So kind of keep them apart from each other. Also, one other thing to note, if you do have some sort of a pacemaker device, you don't want to be near these magnets. They are not safe for pacemakers. So just in case you weren't aware, one other thing I'm going to do, I'm going to move this up a little bit. I just want to make sure that this is cut because I want this to be 3 3/4 by 5. That way you don't have to worry about fitting it afterwards or trimming it or anything. So I'm just going to go ahead and trim this down, and then we'll maybe layer a white piece instead, and then we'll put it onto Pretty Peacock. So I'm really hoping that the color combination I want to go with works. So generally when I do this, again, since this is a red rubber stamp, it has foam, so I've already taken out the black piece underneath because you don't need that. And you're going to kind of decide on where you think you want to go. Now, when you first plan this, you do have to remember it does take a little bit of effort because you have to figure out how to line it up. So generally what I do is I will kind of find one of the larger lines. That way I know that I have it lined up at an inch mark. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just pick this up. So I picked up my stamp. And I know I have stamped all over this, so you might want a little bit different of one, but I'm going to start off with Seaside spray because we do want some to be a little bit lighter. And I'm just going to stamp this and make sure it looks, for the most part, pretty straight. So I'm just stamping this onto my line. As you can see, it's pretty crooked. So what we're going to do is, and you can also kind of do this with the grid lines as well, but sometimes the way you mount your stamp on your sticker onto your stamp can kind of throw things off a little bit as well. So I'm going to do this one more time, and I'm going to stamp it. Now, normally you would want to either change paper or go into a different ink so you can see what this looks like. Let me just try this once more. Make sure it looks like it's a little bit straighter. It's just a hair off. So I'm going to just move it up just a little bit. Okay. So now I'm going to hope that I got this lined up the way I want it, and we will find out in a moment. Again, I'm going to put my paper up so it lines up here at the edge because I know basically where I want this to go. I want it to go pretty much to the end. The other thing you can do ahead of time if you wanted to as well is you could look at your grid lines because they are etched into this, and you could put your stamp down and then line your stamp up on your grid line. So you can always kind of go back a little bit and tweak it, but sometimes, again, it does kind of depend on how you put your sticker on versus how it is exactly mounted. So I'm just going to give this a test. Worst case scenario, we'll flip it over. And I'm just going to put just a magnet there just to ensure that I have it in place. So I'm going to do this once here. And that's actually pretty straight. So I did a pretty good job. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to just take my paper, and this is the point where you really don't necessarily need your magnet, but if it makes you feel better in the beginning, go ahead and use it. And I'm just moving it down one square. I'm not re-inking. I'm just stamping again. It almost looks like you're going to stamp on top of it, but for the most part, you should be pretty good if you have a pretty slim stamp. I'm going to do it once more again without re-inking it because we kind of want that ombre lighter look. Then I'm going to move it down. So I'm just going to keep doing this. So just keep moving it. This time I'm going to re-ink it. Slide it down and you get the idea. So I will possibly attempt to speed this up on YouTube, but I'm going to be quite honest with you. There's a chance you're just going to probably see me and say, okay, let me just skip past this part. So we're just going to keep moving down, making sure we're centered. Now, there is also another way that you can do this. However, because of the size of the notches here, it does sometimes make your gap a little bit larger than you might want it. So the other way you could do this is you would keep your cardstock in place. And I'll show you that one just one second. I'm going to get down a little bit lower. So good news. In time, we have moved down from 3 to 6. So that's pretty awesome. And Stampin' Up! Does sell this grid paper. This is in my online store, so you can purchase it specifically for the Stamparatus, so it's cut nice and neatly. Now, one other thing you could do, so we did get all the way from the bottom to the top. So now, for this one, I'm going to show you a different way. Which, again, the reason I say this is sometimes a little bit more difficult because our notches here are going to move this a significant space. So what you could do is instead, if you had a bigger sentiment, you could actually start off, you could ink it, so that would go straight over that one, pick it up and move it down one, but it's going to move so much that actually on this one, it's going to go below it. So that is another option of what you can do if you wanted to do it that way and you had a larger sentiment. That usually works much better for larger sentiments. So now I'm going to just move this back down and I'm kind of going, it's a little bit lighter and I'm going to re-ink this one. And I'm just basically, because I moved this down a notch, it's meeting it. And I'm just going to try and fill in that very last one because you might wonder, well, why didn't you just do that from the beginning? There we go. So it's a teeny bit of an overlap. But this is actually in a different spot than when we started. When we started, we had it up here at the top. So if that was the case, whoops, I'm going to spill my water. What you're going to do is just keep stepping up and down. And that's why when you do start this, if you're going to keep it in place and move your paper, you want to make sure that you move your stamp so it's at least more towards the middle of your Stamparatus grid. Otherwise, you're going to have a hard time filling in all of your space. So that's basically what I was going for. So you have just a little something. So now all we're going to do, and I know I did say I wanted to do one of these in Pretty Peacock. So what I'm going to do, and I'm pretty sure this one is a little bit darker. So I'm going to bring one of these down. I'm going to just kind of guesstimate where I think it is. One of the lighter ones. And see if I'm correct-ish. Nope, that's a little bit too low. Let me go down just a little bit higher. Go up 2 squares. All right, one more square down. It is pretty cool, though, because you can get a lot of really fun patterns that we were never able to do before. So I'm going to do one in Pretty Peacock, but so it's not super duper dark, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to bring in a scrap and swoop, stamp, and pull that off, and then stamp. So it's just like a little bit, something a little bit darker. So, and then the other thing is, the way this stamps, it does stamp so perfectly, you could even save that for something else and trim it out. Okay, so there is that. Now, one other thing I'm going to do, got my liquid glue in, thankfully. Just came right before I started filming this video. It was very well timed. Just going to clean that off. That way we don't have any little mistakes. So again, that was from a free celebration stamp set, and this is called Sending You Thoughts. So that was just the sending a little something, and I just repeated it down. So we're going to pull this off. Put my magnets here so nothing gets broken. And the nice part is, if you don't have a Stamparatus, the magnets store on the bottom. You do get 2 plates. So you have a top plate, and then that way you can get twice the stamping done, and a bottom plate. Now you don't want to close these together. So if you have one done, I usually pull the other one out and then stick it underneath. It also comes with a foam mat, and this is very useful if you're doing photopolymer stamping. And then again, you do have to purchase the grid paper separately, but I think the grid paper is probably one of the greatest accessories that you can buy if you're going to invest in a Stamparatus, because it really makes it nice to be able to line things up, plus have scraps. The other cool thing you can do, just because you see the apple and the snowman here, if you punch out your punches, if you have something that has pieces, then what you can do is you can line your stamp up, and then you would pick it up, and then you can stamp exactly where you want, and the punch will punch out perfectly. So it's a great tool to have. Very, very useful. I really, really love it. All right, so now I'm going to grab a piece of, I think I have a piece that's already cut, Pretty Peacock. That one might need to be trimmed just a little bit. And I also need a piece of Whisper White. And we're going to layer this underneath. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to punch the beard for the gnomes. I'm going to punch it out of the Whisper White layer for underneath, okay? So our Seaside Spray, again, we cut it down to 3 3/4 by 5. So the Whisper White, we're going to cut at 4 by 5 1/4. And while I'm at it, I'm just going to cut a second piece because we're going to need a piece for the inside for that, since the Pretty Peacock is kind of dark. So I'm just going to trim this down, make sure this is 4 1/4. And then I'm going to go ahead and score this at 5. All right, and now pretty much all we have to do is assemble. So again, I am still going to make this into a Valentine's card. Oop, got everything all discombobulated here. I am going to still make this a Valentine's card, but I'm just making it a little bit different. So I'm just going to reinforce my fold. So this piece is going to go layering on, and then we're going to layer our Seaside Spray, which actually that does look, it looks nice with the white missing, the white in between. And then this is going to be for the inside panel. So I did still want to stick with something kind of Valentine-y. Just in case you didn't see this video the other day, you can punch the beards of these little dudes with either the scalloped heart. So this is a 2-pack, a scalloped heart, and it has a regular shaped heart. So this is the bottom portion right here. And then this beard here, his is more round, is the rest of this piece. So you can actually get 2 out of that. You can also use the snowman body and kind of trim it down a little bit. I did that one with another one. Or you could use the tree punch and just use the bottom of it. So I do already have one Whisper White tree punched out here. But I'm going to show you. I'm just going to punch a couple of them out since we have this white layer. So I'm just going to punch, I'll punch a tree, and I'm going to show you so you understand what it is, just in case you missed that video the other day. There's the snowman. We really only need the body. And I'm not sure if I can fit a heart in here, but I'm going to try. You can at least use part of it. So you do want to make sure when you're punching inside, you want to make sure you leave your border. So that way you don't end up with anything showing underneath of this layer. So as you can see, it's all going to be covered up. So you could certainly punch more stuff out of there if you wanted to. But one time I was not very careful and it was so on the line. I probably should have gotten another piece, but I just went with it anyway. So those are 3 punches. So if you still have the tree punch, that makes it super easy. We do still need to punch out some tops for these dudes. So I thought it would be kind of neat. So again, this is some of the paper. This is the Country Club designer pack. So I'm going to use one of their hats, and you don't really need the trunk portion, so you can kind of really limit the amount of paper that you're wasting by not punching that part. So there's one. I'm not sure if this green would be a little too much, but I'm going to do it anyway. We'll see. So there's green. So I have blue and a green. But again, just kind of thinking outside the box for some non-pink gnomes. So we're going to take our paper snips and just kind of trim the top of the tree to kind of make it look a little more hat-like. You can make it round. You could just trim it straight off. We'll do one a little bit different. So there's kind of more of a little slopey hat. So there's the hat. Now, this is going to be one of the beards. So generally what you can do is kind of when you get above those two higher pieces there, I'm just going to trim this way because it still gives you a good amount of spot to glue it to. So you can see like that. And then if you're going to do the snowman, you're just going to flip the majority of the body up. So you really only need this bottom part. So what you could do is just kind of trim this in a little bit. That way you still have something that you can stick it to. So there's one way to do a beard, or you could do a beard this way. And I kind of tend to try to line these up first so I can see exactly where I want to cut. So that's about a large enough beard. So that's about the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. About at the 6th scallop up, you can go ahead and cut. So you could cut here, and then you could use this one for another piece of the beard, and then same here. And then let's see, this might need just a little bit more. And take a little bit of that off. So there you go. So this guy's just got a little bit of a shorter beard. So you could do anything. You could certainly use the snowman as well. So let me move these over. The only other thing we need, so you do need, what did I do with it? The 1/2 inch circle punch. And you are going to want, I find that Petal Pink has a nice kind of a dusky pink color that really looks like a nose. So all I'm going to do, you see I'm just using up some scrap paper, is just punch out 2 1/2 inch circles, and that's going to be their nose. So very minimal, just a great way to use up some of your tiny, tiny scraps. And if you want to, you can even sponge the edge of this with some Petal Pink ink, but that's just completely up to you. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to just adhere this down. Just going to grab some of my fast fuse because it's handy, and my liquid glue that just came was outside in the cold truck, so it probably wouldn't be flowing very freely. So I'm just sitting this inside, kind of making sure we have a nice border on all sides. I'm going to flip it over, add a little bit more adhesive. I do like to make sure, even if I don't get the middle, that I always get the sides. Make sure our card is opening correctly. There we go. Layer this in. So again, this is a regular base, 4 1/4 by 11. I scored it at 5 1/2. Whisper White is 5 1/4 by 4, and then the Seaside Spray is 3 3/4 by 5. So now I'm going to just take a couple mini glue dots. And first, I like to do the mini glue dot for the nose. So kind of peel both of those off. Stick them under. So you have that little piece peeking out like that. There's one. Decide what you want to do with your beard. This guy's really cute, so I'm going to give him the bottom of that. And I think I'm going to use a bottom of the tree just because it's absolutely adorable. Now you can do this one of two ways. You can either do liquid glue, which I do find, let's see if there's enough left in here. I do find that when you have the liquid glue, it kind of makes it nice because you can move it around a little bit, but you don't really need too much. So we're just going to kind of put this here. And just hold onto that for just a second. In the meantime, I'll put a little bit of glue here. Okay, that looks pretty good. You can always as well pop these up with dimensionals. All right, so there's that. Okay, now one other thing, they have to have some sort of a little smirky smile because you know gnomes are little kind of mischievous dudes. So I'm just giving this one a real small smile down here, and this one I'll give a little bit bigger of a smile and kind of like a mouth up. So there is that part. Now I am going to pop these up with dimensionals because I think it kind of makes them look a little bit more fun. Also, one other reason I do dimensionals is I will put these so it's going to hold the pieces together. So I have one at the top of the hat, one that connects the white and the DSP, and then one kind of down a little bit. Just depends also on how large you cut your gnomes, on how many dimensionals you need, but I usually use at least 3. So there's 3 on each. And again, like I said, I did mention if you wanted, you could sponge the noses. It kind of gives them a little bit more of a actual depth to the nose look. Just going to pull this off. And I'm just going to set this here. So I'm not really pressing it. I just want to see where I want to put them, because I might end up putting the taller one a little bit farther away from the sentiment. So that looks pretty cute. You do want to make sure that you keep the tree top inside the hat, or inside the shape of the card, I should say. So I'm going to keep these. I could use those extra 3 pieces. Move this over. Now, only other thing we're going to do, which, what did I do with my other piece? Here it is, of Whisper White. So we have our inside. So again, if you want to keep this a Valentine, there are lots of great Valentine stuff in here. So we did sending a little something. You could do being friends is better than eating candy. And again, you could add both of these. Roses are red, violets are blue. Being friends is better than eating candy, but let's do that too. Or so lucky to have a friend like you. So I'm going to do the lucky to have a friend like you, but I am going to put the heart in there. So we have this little heart that has these little dots, and then you can kind of fill it in. So we'll do that. And I think I've used the from the heart. I haven't used, no, I have used the So Lucky, because that one is adorable as well. So what I'm going to do, again, I have not stuck this down yet. That way, in case I goof it up, I can still go back and fix it. And I'm going to just stick with the same colors. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to do it opposite this time. So I'm going to do the heart with Pretty Peacock, and then the words with Seaside Spray. And it doesn't even necessarily have to be straight when you stamp your heart, just kind of how you want it. So let's see. Have that. There's our heart. And with the Seaside Spray, just make sure I have this facing the correct direction. Nothing worse than if you stamp something and then you put it in upside down. And then So Lucky to Have a Friend Like You. So really cute, very simple, nice Valentine that any boy or person who's not in love with red could send to their friend. A friend that's a boy, a friend that's a girl, their relatives. Really, really simple, because you did not pick, you know, necessarily pink and red, which is perfectly fine, because quite honestly, Valentine's with the pink and red, I wish we had some other selections as well. So that's why I kind of did this one. So I think this is really adorable. Again, we used some different papers. So lucky to have a friend like you. You absolutely could add something that was, you know, Happy Valentine's Day if you wanted to, but you don't need to. Adorably cute and really, really simple. Look how much better this is lined up with the Stamparatus, because everything is lined. There are a couple that are a little bit light. I probably should have re-inked this one a little bit. However, they're spaced perfectly, and then you have that one little bright one in there. So a little bit different. You could certainly have done one that was in a black as well. That way you'd have something different. If that was the case, you almost would want to start out with the black so you would know where the center one would be, and then just go up and down light-wise from there. But thank you guys very much for joining me today. I hope you love this card. It's really simple. Another great use for your tree punch, and goodness knows I love gnomes, so I am super happy that this came out. And actually, this is going to be one of the cards that we're going to be making for my stamp club on Friday, so that'll be really fun as well. You could also add some little sequins if you wanted to jazz this up a little bit. We have those, I believe we still have the metallic sequins. Hopefully we do, but if not, the Poppy Suite has some great sequins as well, so you could always add a little something to this. If you would like to get any of these projects and more, I would love for you to stop in my online store, which is rachthestamper.stampinup.net. If you shop with this host code, you will get a nice thank you note and a little thank you gift. Thank you guys very much for watching. If you haven't already, make sure you hit the subscribe button and then turn on the bell so you get notified every time you find a new video here. Thanks guys for watching. Have a great day.